Are people remarking a lot on how things are becoming more expensive every day, every week, every month?
Man, there are people right now, they are asking themselves, what are we going to do? Are we going to fuel up the car or going to buy groceries? Because we can't afford both. I mean, how far will this government go to rob the people blind, and for what? I just don't get it.
What's the motivation for this demonstration?
Get rid of the carbon tax, get the communist piece of shit out of office. That's pretty much why I'm here.
Like they're all saying, we have to pick between heating the house or buying food or even putting fuel in the vehicle to get down to get food. So it's just absolutely ridiculous.
So I'm here at this demonstration at Crowsnest Lake, right near the border between Alberta and British Columbia, at this demonstration, this protest opposed to the increase in the so-called carbon tax. Robert Kreischick here reporting for Rebel News. As you can see all around us, we've got demonstrators who came in. I want you folks to really remember that this is a pretty remote part of the country, so people who come here are quite committed. There are going to be demonstrations taking place now in different parts of the country, Ottawa, Calgary, and so forth. So one thing to keep in mind is that today there's a raise coming into place for members of Parliament. That includes Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who of course is an MP himself, and it's coming in at the same time as this proposed increase in the so-called carbon tax. The idea that somehow carbon dioxide is a pollutant that needs to be regulated and controlled, and that in order to do so, we should punish people financially for consumption of fossil fuels.
We need to fight climate change, and we need to be supporting people with more money in their pockets. That's what the federal backstop does. That's what the Canada carbon rebate that's landing in people's bank accounts as of April 15th is going to help them with. And that's a Canada carbon rebate, money in people's pockets, that conservative politicians want to take away.
As you can see behind me, there are a whole bunch of demonstrators. A lot of the motorists passing by are honking their horns in support, so clearly these people have a lot of allies in the area. Now, one thing I want you folks to remember is that it's not easy to get out here. This is not a city. There's not going to be thousands of people per square kilometer. People had to travel here from reasonable and great distances, 40, 100, 200, 300, 400 kilometers away. So people really had to make a real trip, a real commitment to get out here and make their voices heard. So keep that in mind when you're sort of evaluating the volume, the size of this demonstration. What's the motivation? What's the rationale for being here?
Okay, for me, apart from the carbon tax, which is going to make life way more difficult for Canadians than it already is, we're here to remind Mr. Trudeau that we have not forgotten what he's done to this country over the last 8 years.
My rationale is I believe we should have been behind the truckers a lot more right from the beginning. One of my biggest regrets is not supporting him more. Although I did support him, I was not there. And we probably could have done more out here.
Hi, Rob. Well, we're protesting against prices. Prices increasing all the time with Trudeau, Liberal. And anyway, and it's getting so carried away. I'm on pension. And anyway, the price of gas, carbon tax, and just going sky high in every direction.
Oh, I just agree with what Dennis said. They need to axe the tax. Like, we're paying so much. Like my gas bill, I'm paying almost more in carbon tax than I paid for my gas bill.
This is a demonstration for the government to let them know that what they're doing is basically robbing the people.
Just everything. Canada needs new government. We need to go forward. We need our oil and gas sector. As Albertans, I grew up that way. When I was 20-some years old, I was making just about $25 an hour being a secretary. Life was good. We had, we could easily buy a house, easily just have fun. Anyways, we just need new.
Today's focus is on axing the carbon tax. It's ridiculous. The affordability for Canadians, all they're doing is lining their pockets. They're basically bankrupting the country, and it's all bogus. If you actually look and follow the science, like they say, the carbon tax, or there is no carbon issue, sorry. So in my opinion, it's just a money grab, and they're just going to try to line their pockets with it, and you can't fix pollution by paying taxes.
We need to get rid of this carbon tax completely. We can't have it anymore. We need to get rid of Trudeau. It's the biggest thing. He has to go. And the way the country is right now, my grandkids and my kids are struggling. My grandkids will never own a home, let alone drive a vehicle. You know, when you look at prices of gas went up 18 cents a liter. Right. You know, for the average family that's working, both parents working, can barely make ends meet, and they need to drive to work, it's going to cost them an extra $100 a month.
Well, we're just really sick and tired of the way the country's being run by Trudeau and his coalition, and I mean, we're not seeing any of the prices coming down. It's just going up, up, and up. And like, we're senior citizens, we're retired, and you know, like they're all saying, we have to pick between heating the house or buying food, or even putting fuel in the vehicle to get down to get food. So it's just absolutely ridiculous.
Well, it's about getting rid of this carbon tax that's affecting, you know, many families across the country, where you have Parliament and MPs taking a $8,100 pay raise today. You know, and great point. You know, a lot of them say that, I really don't want it, I don't need it. But they're not giving any consideration as to the effect that it's having on the families that are struggling with, do they put food on the table? Do they put food on the table, or do they pay the rent?
Well, absolutely. Everybody is talking about it. You know, they can't afford things anymore, that like going on holidays. Like, for instance, I have family in Europe, and how do I ever visit them again with those tax hikes we are having? It's almost impossible to see my family again.
Well, this tax, this year after year increase, both till 2030 or whatever, and obviously it's going to get pushed more with the Liberal government after that. Why are we paying this? Why are we suffering? We're hardworking Canadian people here, so there's zero reason for it.
Carbon tax equals hunger, no food, homelessness, and resulting deaths. Is this our new Canada? So, Doreen, why don't you talk to us about this sign and, like I was saying earlier with you, increased signs of impoverishment with respect to vagrancy, destitution, drug addiction, so-called homelessness. What are you seeing? What do you want to tell us about what's going on?
Well, I have been noticing a lot of people living in tents, not just in cities, but even in my hometown, Castlegar and Trail. You know, and it's really disheartening to see.
This demonstration is about all the extra taxes on taxes that people can't afford anymore. People are poor. People can't afford to have their houses. They cannot afford to drive a car. So the 32 extra % tax that's coming on today, it's unacceptable. That's why we're here.
Get rid of the carbon tax. Get the communist piece of shit out of office. That's pretty much why I'm here.
I'm here just to protest the carbon tax peacefully, just to kind of to get it out there that this isn't going to solve anything, and it's just going to make everything else for Canadians more expensive, and just that it's doing the exact opposite of what they're wanting it to do.
Is cost of living something that comes up in your conversations with family, friends, colleagues, that things are becoming more unaffordable, struggles related to finances?
Absolutely. I mean, anybody buying anything can see prices going up steadily. And, I'm adamantly against the Trudeau government and what they represent, and the loss of freedoms, and the way they've treated political prisoners. And, I'm glad that Rebel News is out there trying to spread the truth.
Thank you. I think that's a conversation with everybody. Now, the cost of living, I don't think I could have one conversation with a person and that does not come up. It affects everybody. Some of us can definitely afford it more than others, but that doesn't make it right.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think of my daughter, she just got a car, and it's going to cost her a lot of money for gas. So she's going to have to work a lot more hours to be able to drive to school or whatever.
Man, there are people right now, they are asking themselves, what are we going to do? Are we going to fuel up the car or going to buy groceries? because we can't afford both. I mean, how far will this government go to rob the people blind, and for what? I just don't get it.
Absolutely. Where I live in Cranbrook, there's a lot of rural communities where people need to drive to get their groceries. So the cost of their fuel just to get to the grocery store to go to buy a $7 head of lettuce, like whoever would have thought we'd buy the $7 head of lettuce. In Canada, it's absolutely ridiculous. So from the cost of living, the gas, the groceries, your bills. I've got many of my friends commented on their natural gas bills where they used $170 in product, but their carbon tax was $160. So when the taxes are as much as the energy being used, there's something wrong with that picture, and it's just going to go up and up and up.
I don't really know, any families immediately that still have small children at home. A lot of them have grown up and out on their own right now. But I think, with a lot of them that still have, their own companies and they're running, trucks and equipment and stuff like that. It's not only, what's affecting you in the house, but also outside, if that affects you. Because where I live, our communities are spread out. They're anywhere from 30 kilometers, 40 kilometers apart.
So you got to drive a lot.
You got to drive a lot. If there's not something in your community that you need to go to the next community, it's a half-hour drive, right? So half hour there, half hour back. So it affects you not only with the carbon tax, but now you're paying on the increase in goods and services, but now you're having to afford that in your tank.
Yeah, absolutely. Like me, middle-class citizen, who seems to be a middle-class citizen that keeps getting smaller and smaller, us group of people. But in Lethbridge, when I was young, there was a couple homeless people there, like two that I can think of off the top of my head, and you knew them by name.
Yeah.
We put a safe injection center in Lethbridge a few years ago. It's now gone, to my knowledge. There's some other stuff like that there. After that left, there's homelessness, pushing all this carbon tax increase year after year. Well, there's a certain group of people, of homelessness people, that group of people keeps increasing and increasing exponentially now every year, to a city when I was young I enjoyed living into, to now I would love to get out of it, because as a parent, well, you don't want to take your children into a park without searching the park for needles, for one thing, and two, your kids are not given a great opportunity in a city like that when there's all that riffraff around anyway. And now we're pushing a carbon tax into an already disaster. How is that going to help? How is that giving children an opportunity in the future? How is it giving children an opportunity to even attempt to even think of buying a home? It doesn't. Unless you come from a family that has substantially a lot of money, which is a very small portion of the population.
Absolutely. I've had my sister was telling me of many friends, and I've noticed some people I've known too that are very distressed about the higher cost, the costs that keep going up, and they're getting really distressed and frightened, and they don't know what's going to happen next, and some are already out of doors.
Is there evidence out there in your life where people are, where you're seeing more evidence of just hardship financially?
Absolutely. It's like for my age group, just in my friends alone, having to work 2-3 jobs just to be able to afford rent, let alone ever being able to buy a place, just on the fact that everything's going up in price and the wages aren't reflecting it, that you're paying so much in tax that you can't get any further ahead. And it doesn't matter your wage, because it's just, that's the thing, you start paying all these taxes and it doesn't end.
Dear Rebel News audience, we depend on your financial support to produce this original in-the-field journalism. So please contribute to our operational costs. Visit rebelfieldreports.com and help us out if you can.